It's good to be here. It's good to see you. I'm glad all this is working out. I'm glad that all of us were able to get connected here. Um, and I'm I've got some homework, some housekeeping for us, and then I've got some slides I want to share with you. And I'm waiting to see if we are going to get the other 4 participants in. I can do some of the housekeeping without them. And so let me do that. Especially since the first parts of the housekeeping are commercials. If you don't already have a copy of Creating a World That Works for All, you should get yourself a copy of it in our, oh, that's right, hold up your copies. If you we are going to do, oh, somebody's got Living in Truth also. Good luck with that. It's a little bit dense reading here. You're getting ahead of me now. So we're going to be doing an exercise from Creating a World That Works for All next week. You don't have to have the book in order for you to experience the exercise. However, if you have the book, you can also, for every question I'll be asking, you can read the background for that question. If you order the book through Commonway, I've got plenty of copies of the book, and I can get that in the mail to you pretty quickly. But I'm also going to throw in if you see me wearing my Creating a World That Works for All button, and I'll give you a closer view of that. And I'll toss a free button in the bag with you with the book. And for another $50, I'll actually give you a signature and autograph too. Second commercial is The Paths of Awakening is the second series that is not required, but it is a complementary piece that looks at the issue of consciousness, the issue of mindfulness, and kind of how we're going to be living in our in our society. I'm going to put a reference to that in the chat, which some of you are already using. And so, so here's the URL for the seminar series. And some of you are already on that, and if so, great. And some of you have chosen that you don't want to do that, and if so, great. I may never speak to you again, but great, okay. And that was called a joke, and I'm liable to break out in jokes at any point in time for those of you who don't know me. So if you want more information on that second series, you've got it now. More housekeeping. Absences and latenesses. Because of the size of the group, I really would appreciate it if you let me know in advance. Someone has already let me know that today is their birthday and they are in the midst of celebration, and they will come on, and then we'll have to leave early. I have no idea what goes into their celebration, but they will be they won't be with us the whole time. And again, it's just nice to know who's walking in and who's walking out of our house. Obviously, this is being recorded, and since you're on the line, you are agreeing, and you should nod your heads now, to be recorded. I see at least one thumb. Like if you forgot a thumb, then you should put it up. The recording is going to be used for you. And so for the people who are signed up for this, you can access the recording if you want to review something, if you have to miss a part of a session, if you want to find out, what other folks are talking about, etc. I will try to have the recording available within 24 hours. It may be 48 hours, but I will do my best to get it on the road for you. Confidentiality. We are going to be going deep into this topic, and I'm going to be asking you to share information in a deep way. I would ask you to self-audit yourself. We don't need to know the ins and outs of the last operation you had, or where you hid the money from the bank robbery that you just committed. But we may be getting into sensitive areas. We may be getting into areas that are not for the public. You wouldn't say in public. In this situation, I am asking all of us to agree that and excuse me, but I've got bells and whistles going off around me, and I'm trying to pay attention here. I would ask all of us to agree that we will not repeat what we've heard in this space without talking to the person who actually said it. And if you can agree with that, I'm going to ask you to put your hand up so I can see it. Put your hand up so that I can see it. And we've got one hand that I haven't seen yet, Carol. And if you have to, Carol, if you have to put a digital hand up, go ahead and do that. I see the top of her head. Okay, there you go.
Keep reading the chat box.
Okay, so with that, thank you. And I take this seriously because even from the first exercise, you can see that you wrote stuff down that you're not going to want to see on the front page of your local paper, in terms of your relationships with people, the ones you're having great relationships with and the ones you're having less than great relationships with. Let's do some Zoom technical stuff. We all know how to turn our videos on and off. I see we're doing that right now. What I want you all to do right now is turn your video off. Okay. Okay, and looks like that's everybody but me. Now I want you to turn your videos on. Okay, good. And now I want you all to turn your microphones on, turn your audio on. We can hear who's chewing here. Oh my goodness, all of you are so quiet.
Dinner.
Okay, so turn your microphones back off and go ahead and turn your video off if you're more comfortable with it off right now. I see there's a question over here. Are breakout rooms being used? Are the breakout rooms being recorded? Is the recording only for us? Are we agreeing to not repost the recordings without written permission? Number one, we're going to be using breakout rooms, probably not today. We'll see about that. But they'll be used at some time during the series. They are not recorded. It is impossible to record a breakout room. So the rest of it is not relevant. For the video in general, when I send that link out, you are not sending that link out to anybody else, period. If somebody else wants it, they should contact me and I will then tell them no. So that will pretty much take care of that, with one exception. I'm working with a group of people. I've been working with this group for the past few weeks now, who are over in England. They want to attend, but right now it's 2 a.m. in England. And to show what kind of dedication they've got, they won't sign in at 2 a.m. I don't know. I haven't worked with them enough, I guess. Okay, that was another joke. And so we may wind up with some kind of a recording sharing situation with that over there. But before I do that, I will get the same commitment from them that they will treat this information as though it's their own information. Okay. So I'm sorry, I saw another question in the chat box. This looks like a private question, so I'll do that later. If you along the bottom row of your Zoom window, you should see something that says participants. And when you click on participants, you should have an ability to raise and lower your hand. So right now, I want everyone to raise their digital hand. And wow, you folks are just so on top of this. Okay. I can't. Okay, there we go, And I'm seeing 4 of you have not raised your hand. And let's see here. David and Lisa and Monica, I don't see a hand. And I see David, okay, David, I see yours. And Lisa, I still don't see yours. Your digital hand. Okay, so if for any reason you can't raise your digital hand, you can wave your meat hand around. Okay, and I recognize digits or meat. And I will now ask you to go ahead and lower your hands, and that would be good. So I can lower your hands, or you can lower your own hand. And so let's go on. So I want you to now click on the chat box, and you should see a pop-out box with all of the chats that have been going on in it. Some of you have already found the chat box, I can see. right now, I want you to write into the chat box your name, where you live, and where you're located right now, if that's different from where you live. And that just gives you some experience in putting something in the chat box. And it lets me see what you look like while you're doing something in the chat box. And so after we do that, what I want us to do is an intro and a check-in. And I will do that after we do a centering and grounding meditation. Now, this is not the meditation. We're really going to be getting into things like mindfulness, meditation, etc., in Paths of Awakening. But every time when I was working with Sarvodaya in Sri Lanka, no matter what the meeting was, at every meeting, we started it with just a couple, and sometimes even 30 seconds of meditation, just to make sure that everyone is in the room, just to make sure that we're all focused and physically in the room. So let's do that now. For those of you who are experienced meditators, you should do your experience. For those of you who are not, I will suggest that you close your eyes. And I would suggest we do 2 or 3 deep breaths together. Breath in, breath out, and completely out. Breath in, breath out. Feel yourself calming down already. One more breath in. And breath out. And that is the way that folks over in Sri Lanka brought us back, was by knocking on a piece of wood. And so if we can resume being in our center, being back here in our Zoom window, I am going to ask that we do a very short check-in. Short check-in meaning everyone should say what your name is, the current weather wherever you are, and if you've attended any other Common Way events, either the free ones or the paid ones, let me know that. And anything else you would like us to know about you before we get started. So I'm going to go in the order of, oh, by the way, I'm in gallery view. And I think that all of you know what gallery view is. I can see all of your windows. If you're not in gallery view, I would suggest you go to gallery view so that you can see all of the windows. And I'm going to go in my order. And so the top of my screen, I've got Angela. And so Angela, if you can unmute yourself and tell us.
Yep. So whether, if I've attended something else, and then whatever else I might want to say, right?
Right.
Okay. It looks like we have blue skies here in Oregon now. This morning it was not that kind of weather, so it looks like it's clearing up. I attended I forget what it was called, but the talk you did about your book, and then
Okay.
you did a couple of these solutions beyond diversity, little short things, and I attended
Hmm.
those as well. I will be attending this whole series and one of the pathway
Hmm.
offerings. And right now I'm kind of tired. I don't know what else to share. I spend
Well,
almost all day on Zoom, so I'm kind of like video comatose a little bit, but glad to be here.
I have a new term I'm developing. It's called being a zombie.
Yes,
It's like being a zombie, but because of Zoom. So yeah,
that's how I feel right now.
yeah. Debbie, you are up next.
Hello, I'm Debbie Diesrath. I'm from outside of Philadelphia in New Jersey. The weather here was beautiful today. It was in the mid 70s, really sunny, really gorgeous breezy day. And I have listened to a number of your talks on WBEX over the past year. Really interested in your take on things. So I'm glad this option is available to us. And I had two of my friends join us tonight. So thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Greg, you are up next.
Hey, hi. Hi from Bennington, Vermont, where it is about 80 degrees and a beautiful evening. It's after sunset here. Sharif and I go way back. I first heard Sharif's talk at my church that caused me to sign up for Releasing the Shadow, Embracing the Light. I've taken that twice. It's been my goal to offer it to other people sometime in the future. And I also have a company that I want to start offering diversity training of some kind. And so I'm hoping to integrate a lot of Sharif's ideas, perhaps going so far as to offer his work in my seminars. And so I am here to deepen, again, my understanding, as happens every time I take one of these.
Very cool. And you may know, you and I haven't talked about it, but given the situation with the all of the confusions around COVID and the outpourings of anger around the George Floyd murder, we're revamping and revving up Shadow to Light to roll in the fall and roll in a really big way. So all of you should be staying tuned for that, because Shadow to Light was a very, I think it was a very important program, and so does he. Okay,
and yes, I just want to say I forgot to mention that today is my 65th birthday, which in the world of an American means a transition, and so I am hoping to make the current situation be the wings for my transition.
Excellent, excellent. Yeah, and after you get to 65, only the ones on even years count. So I turned 69, but okay, I'm waiting for 70. You know. So okay, Jill, you are up next.
Hello, everyone. I first took a class from you back at New Renaissance Bookstore like 10, 15, maybe even more years ago.
More, yeah.
A long time ago.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then I've also seen you at the same church that Greg has seen you at. I think Greg has moved. And then I also was at Namaste Restaurant a couple years ago with a friend that was a yoga instructor, and you were sitting at the table next to us, and I had a long talk with you. And then today, I'm one of those people that opened up the emails and went, oh, that's what I'm doing tonight. So thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you. Number one, thank you. Number two, where I live now, Namaste is 400 feet that way. When I open my window, I smell Indian food, which is really great. You know.
Yeah. Good
Not for my waistline, but yeah. Okay, Marianne. you can unmute yourself.
I did.
I-
Sorry.
Okay, good. Got, yep, yep.
Okay. Hi, I'm Marianne Hansen, and I'm currently living in Longview. I moved here a little while ago. The weather is sunny, but it was raining, but now it's sunny. And I have never taken any classes. I did take Practicing Inclusivity from Dinah Chapman at Unity in Albuquerque a few years ago. But I'm really looking forward to this work and just getting involved with it. So looking forward to it. Thank you.
Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Susan. Wait, Susan, you were the one having the problems getting online, right?
I did have to get another link from you, yes.
Okay, good, good.
Okay, so I'm Susan, I'm in Cincinnati, and it's dark outside, and it was a lovely day today. And I met Sharif at 2 Unity conventions and took workshops. The first year you were there, and then the next year you were the keynote speaker and took a workshop then. And just so respect the work and the depth. So happy to be here.
Excellent, excellent. So thank you. And David. Unmute yourself.
So I'm David, and I live in Portland, about 3 blocks from Sharif, I believe.
Yep.
Namaste, which I've never tried, but I will. I heard about Sharif's program and his noetic abilities from a friend that lives here at my high-rise continuing care retirement center at Holiday Park in Portland. And I saw his TED Talk at Concordia College that he did a couple years ago, and I was pretty impressed. And his ideas are like a relief from the tension that I felt from childhood. My parents were activists. They were wonderful people. They were really smart. My dad was a psychoanalyst, but we never quite got that far in terms of the ecosphere. It's the whole thing. It's everything. It's not just this psychopathology and this leader or this whatever. So anyway, I really like this philosophy. I read your book about onco. I can't remember the name of the title. I've had a head injury. And
The Chronicles of the Upheavals.
Yeah, I read that, and I went to your seminar on that online. And I've seen a couple of the things that you told us about that you were in, including the one I've seen 3 times about you're sitting there in your apartment looking at the flashing blue lights and these white guys getting in and out of cars and stuff. That was great. And then the most recent one was an interview, I think on the 13th. I can't remember the name of the guy, but you've known him for many years, and that was excellent.
Yeah.
So
that was also a lot of fun too. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I'm in for this, and I'm going to do the other one too. And that's going to keep me kind of in it. I'm very involved in music and a lot of educational stuff for myself. And my brain is just full of that. But that's part of my philosophy too. That's a whole ecosphere in itself. And it gets you going in different ways that you can't even anticipate. So thank you.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah. And from my meditation room, if I look up, I can see the top floors of Holiday Park. I see the big sign up there. So we are neighbors. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Robin, unmute yourself. And for those who have spoken already, you may want to remute yourselves.
I'm Robin Goff, and I'm in Kansas, where it's very, very hot and sunny and beautiful. Boy, Sharif, it goes way back. I read your book many, many eons ago, and Creating the World That Works for All, and saw you a couple of times at Unity conferences, as Susan mentioned, and seems like about a year and a half ago, I was just back from South Africa, and there was a program you did talking about the butterfly, and I don't remember what that was called. But that's when I really started getting like, okay, I'm on the same wavelength here. I got to pay attention to this guy and every word he says. So I just get on everything that comes across my screen that you're doing, and Facing the Futures recently, and Chronicle of the Upheavals, and TED Talks, and whatever, everything. I just feel as if this is the work that really speaks to my heart and soul, and it's right where I am, and I want to keep going deeper. So thank
Excellent.
you.
Thank you. Thank you. Lisa.
Okay, I am in Milburn, New Jersey, Maplewood, South Orange area, so outside of Newark Airport. It was a beautiful day today. I had the same weather as Debbie. Spent the entire day on Zoom, still on Zoom, and
And you're hanging in there, yay!
since 7 a.m. this morning, I think I had a half-hour break all day.
Yeah.
So I am attending and paying attention. So
Okay. Okay. Great. Tim. And you got to unmute yourself.
Yep, I am
There you
unmuted.
go.
I have the little yellow box around me now.
Okay, right, yeah.
My name is Tim Holbert. I also live in Portland. There's someone else who also lives in Portland. It is sunny now. It's beautiful. It's been raining for about 10 years. So I'm like as soggy as can be. And it drives me insane. So I'm so glad to see the beautiful sunshine. I don't know how long I've known Sharif, but I first met Sharif at Pete's Coffee, like 2 blocks from where he lives now. And when I think that was, I remember that was like 2003, maybe somewhere around there. Yeah, it might have been. Well, I was doing my work, and we just started talking, and I love those conversations. Love them. They were just like fabulous. Like, I love the way this person thinks. I've taken, there's one video series you did a couple of years ago, and then we have a couple of your books, The Power of One, and I think we have the healing book, and yeah, and that's it. And you currently live in an apartment that our best friends used to live in just a couple years ago.
Doesn't look any different.
It's like, I know that living room.
Right, yeah.
Oh my gosh, it does look different, but
Yeah.
And Melinda's here too, my wife. So.
Okay, so we can tell how long we've known each other by the age of your daughter.
Oh, that's right. How old was she when we met? Was she even born?
Non-existent, yes.
Oh.
a gleam in each other's eye.
It's been more than 16 years then, friend.
There you go. There you go.
I'm
It just
so
keeps stacking
excited.
up.
So for everyone else, I work in public health. I work in the local health department, Multnomah County Health Department, but I also work for the state of Oregon Health Authority, and I work specifically with communities of color around data and data collection and data acquisition and making meaning from data and trying to transform the way the institutions work with communities around data. So this is, yeah, spot on. Thanks.
Okay. And Tim and I have worked, we did more than just drink coffee and tea together. Tim and I have worked with Multnomah County Health Department when I was doing inclusivity trainings there.
The mind map thing, remember
That's
that?
right.
The
Yep,
brain?
yep.
Yeah, that was
Yep.
great.
Yep. I'll depending on what happens in this series, I may introduce you to my brain. We'll see. Okay. Monica, I think you are next.
Hi, everybody. I'm Monica. I live in Southern New Jersey. And it's just after 9:30 p.m. and we had a gorgeous day. It's in the low 60s right now. I am being introduced to Sharif for the first time in your work through my friend Debbie. So right now I'm signed up for this particular module.
Okay, thank you. The pictures have jumped around. I think that Vina, you are next. You've got a
unmute.
Yes.
No matter how many times you do it, I always forget. There's always a moment when I do that. Nice to meet all of you. I live in Altadena, California, which is in Southern California, just outside of LA. And it's beautiful. The weather's great. It's always great here, but it can be really hot. And right now it's not. It's perfect. Sharif and I met about 20 years ago at a weekend seminar or conference. I think it was leadership seminar for young activists, if I remember. And I was having a kind of a crisis of consciousness around that moment, around activism. And that crisis was, as long as we're fighting against something and not creating something new, then we really are supporting the thing that we're fighting against. And it's not going to change. And in the opening sharing circle, I was really just like, oh my God, like it was a major problem for me because I had been an activist for many years at that point. And I felt really like this is my identity. This is where I feel like I'm contributing. And I realized I wasn't contributing in the way that I felt like I really could be, or any of us could be, that we all could be. And so I shared it in the opening circle, and Sharif immediately connected around that idea. And since then we've been good friends. And even though we speak maybe every few years, I spent many years living in Europe after that. And over the years, of course, Sharif read all your books. Never attended a workshop, so this is fun. And I spent then 15 years in the corporate sector, just basically getting some skills and paying off my student loans. And now I'm looking again at how can I be involved in social change beyond the be the change idea, meaning work on yourself, meditate, be peaceful, treat people well. That's important, but I feel like I'm ready to do something a little bit more, using my 9-to-5 energy to do something a bit different. And given, the climate that we're in, there are some issues on the table that we're being called to look at. And I want to take the opportunity to look at those so that I'm really coming from a place where I can create change in the world, in myself, starting, right? So I want to also share that I have a young child. He's 4.5. And so my camera's going to go on and off because he doesn't usually give me a lot of peace when I'm having personal time. I'm in the garage right now, which is the second thing I want to say. So the internet's not very strong. So my video is also going off because my internet might get weak when the video is on. It takes more bandwidth. So I'm going to be in and out. Maybe I'm here, I'm not leaving the space, but I might just turn it off because my child is coming in going like, Mommy, like he came in earlier, my tummy hurts, Daddy, I don't want Daddy, I want you, so I'll deal with that.
No idea what you're talking about. This is yeah, it's just a foreign concept of children,
Yeah.
Yeah, when your grandchildren can drive, it just turns everything into a whole different picture. So yeah, but we will be understanding. I see actually Tim smiling and nodding his head. It's like, yeah, I've been there, done that. So yeah. The real cool thing is that they do get older. Now the whining changes. Okay, there's different things to whine about. Okay. Let's keep going here. So I think Dinah is next.
Coming.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, I'm Dinah Chapman, and I live in Dublin, California, in the Bay Area, in the sunny California weather. I love it. I met Sharif in 2013. I was on my way to becoming a Unity minister in seminary. And he came to do a class called the Peace Seminar, but had 2-week intensive with him going through creating a world that works for all. And that's where the bug bit me. And following ever since, when he came to the Unity Convention and Shadow the Light and whatever else you can come up with. So every time I think I'm going to bow out, it's just, this work just calls me right back. And I'm just here. I'm happy to be here. And for me, it's about that spiritual consciousness, building consciousness. So glad to be here and glad to meet you all.
Okay, thank you. And yeah, over the time, one of my most satisfying sessions was what you did in when Unity Institute was live and kicking, and because it was 2 weeks and we could take our time and we could really explore these concepts more. So I need to that format is something that calls to me, and so next time somebody's going to cover 2 weeks of my time, I'm going to do it again. So last but definitely not least at this point in time is Carol. So if you can connect yourself and unmute yourself.
Sorry, first off, I am stopping my video because I have 3 other people in the house and I have a kind of small house, so they are coming.
Yep,
in.
yep. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm Carol, and I have known Sharif since I took his Shadow to Light course 3.5 or 4 years ago, I think. And since have done different parts of his work. I've read Creating a World That Works for All. I've read the Chronicles of Upheaval. I don't know. I think a couple people on this call did the 64-day thing during the season for nonviolence. Incredibly powerful. And I too, I mean, I really do feel like there's a big evolving spiritual consciousness that is growing. And so that's one of the reasons I love Sharif's work, because that's a big component of it. So thank you, everybody.
And I see you're still wearing your button. I don't know if you can see my button, but I'm wearing my button, and I'm wearing it every day. I mean, it's just kind of like now. It's just like, you get dressed. Oh, and Dinah's got her button on. And for all of you who are ordering the book, you'll get a button. And I think that 20 years from now, these will be held in the Smithsonian. They'll be like, these were the first Creating a World That Works for All buttons. So, all right. So now there or we'll go ahead and get started. I was just told that my internet is unstable, so I'm going to see if I can stop waving around here and maybe stabilize it. I want to share some thoughts with you and share some positions with you, and then get into the notion of the other. As we're getting started, I usually just launch into this and into the topic without talking about my relationship to the other and who my other was, who my other still may be, and who my other might be in the future. But I've had there are moments when I get triggered, and my triggering has changed a lot over time. I was thinking about this just maybe 3 or 4 months ago. My exercise lately, as of COVID, is walking the half mile to and from my post office box. And I pass by an assisted living place when I am there. And there are a number of people who have residents there. at this assisted living location. And there was a guy who was walking up and down the sidewalk talking to himself. Well, that isn't all that rare, okay? I mean, there. And so I usually, if a person is talking to themselves, I hope they're having a good conversation. I'll let them have their space. So I walked past him with no incident. And as I was walking back toward him, he started cursing. And he was clearly cursing at me because he was using every racially charged slur that he possibly could. And I think he was making some up on the spot. And he was shouting this really, really loud. And I turned around and I saw I was the only Black person on the street. So he's probably doing this to me. And I thought about a number of courses of action. And one of my courses of action was I was thinking about calling the police so that they could quiet him down, so that he would not be doing this when a Black person came around that would be triggered by it. I knew I wasn't triggered by it. You know, I felt sorry for him. I felt, as I would see any person that has a demon riding them. You know, it's just, I wish there was something that I could do. I'm going to hold positive energy toward him. I'm not going to react to anything that he's saying because I know it's not him saying it. Now, I also know that for probably 90% of the Black people using that post office, they would react to him, and they would react to him really strongly, and there'd be an incident and things could get good. So my question was, is there anything I can do to lessen the energy? So that's not my trigger. Now, I do have triggers, and one of the ways that you can tell whether or not I have triggers is, am I drawing breath? Am I breathing? Because if I'm breathing, I am triggered, okay? I have a trigger. And if you don't know what your triggers are, you can you can be very surprised at how you're triggered. When I was in law school, I got triggered a lot. This is Boston University Law School, one of the top 5 law schools in the country. Everyone that goes to the school believes that they are privileged. And when in 1974, large numbers of African Americans were going to the law school, everybody believed that we didn't belong there. Now, at the time, your law school aptitude test scores would go from 800 to 1600. And you needed at least 1,000 to be considered by a school like BU. And my score was in the 1300s. I would have been, if regardless of my racial status, I would have been considered for entry, well, anywhere. And so, but all of the white students just assumed that I was a charity case. And the assumption happened, the conservative students were, you don't belong here. And the liberal students were, you don't belong here, but we'll help you out. We'll help you with your grades. And there are people, oh, do you want us to study with you? Do you want us to read this chapter to you? Do you understand English? I mean, and I don't know which one was more infuriating, okay? I came within inches of getting a t-shirt and just putting my LSAT score on the front of it, 1326. And then underneath it say, how big was yours? you know. And now that is the kind of thing that is reactive. When you get triggered, there's a reaction, and that's something that is that reaction generally comes out of some level of anger, and the reaction comes out of some level of frustration. And as I say in The Power of One, your anger is based in powerlessness. If you are angry, it's because you're feeling powerless in a given situation. Once you recognize your power, you will still respond, but your response will be appropriate to the actions, and the response will be something that actually can change the situation. So coupled with that, you know, in law school, I had a full scholarship. And I had a full scholarship because I could qualify for an academic scholarship. I mean, I'm not, maybe I am bragging. I'm going to stop. Let me slow down then. But I was a desirable commodity. The student, the administration, when they got my application, was like, we definitely want this guy. All of the white students assumed that me getting a scholarship was based on assumed that I was poor. Well, actually, that was a good assumption. But they assumed that I was poor because I was Black, which was not a good assumption. And so there's this notion of deservedness. There's a notion that we qualify, you don't. There's a notion of we belong here. And from the conservative point of view, you don't belong here. From the liberal progressive point of view, you don't belong here, and we're going to try to help you, okay? One last story of otherness, and this goes back into childhood otherness. When we go through the module on deep identity, we'll go into this a lot deeper. But how you get pegged, sometimes you can't see it coming. When I was in 4th grade, so we were raised in Camden, New Jersey. For all you New Jerseyites, I find it interesting that Camden's been in the news so much lately, and that's been in the news because of the disbanding of its police force, retrenching its police force. And it was in the news because the police force was so corrupt, they had to get rid of the whole thing. So in Camden, I was on welfare, and the welfare office, for some reason, decided that all of the kids that were in school who were receiving welfare should have new clothes to go to school. So my mom got a voucher in her August check that was for me and my brother, who were in school at the time, to go and get brand new clothes from a particular store. So my mom takes us in and show the guy the vouchers, and he says, "Oh yeah, those clothes are over here." And we went and we got to pick out whatever we wanted, everything: underwear, socks, pants, a shirt. And I had a really cool shirt, and I thought really cool pants. And so I go bopping to school the first day of school with my brand new welfare clothes on. And it took the other kids about 10 minutes to figure out, why are some of these kids wearing the same clothes? Okay. It was almost like we had a uniform. And when they found out, they gave us, they had no idea what welfare was. The only thing they knew was, you're different and I can pick on you now. And they did all day long. And my mother could never understand why I would never wear my welfare clothes again. I couldn't explain it to her, but this whole notion of being othered. Now, in my class, all the kids were black, you know, so it wasn't like the white kids were picking on me. It's just like there's this thing where we pick on each other, okay? And in that thing, we have to become conscious that whatever this issue is, all of us carry it. It's not my issue. It's not your issue. It's not white people's issue. Everybody carries this thing because we're overly focusing on the presenting symptom of racism. We're we're not looking at how everybody else is manifesting this. Okay, I'm looking at an outline. We're right at the beginning of my outline. So I got 2 hours to cover, and I've got about 1 hour to do it. I have a question for us. And the question is, do we need to take a break now? Because I'm about to start a segment that'll go at least 10 or 15 minutes. And if you feel that we need to take a break, I want you to put your thumb up. And I see some folks who are shaking their heads. If you don't need a break, we're going to put our thumbs down. Okay, so on we go. I am going to share my screen. My screen just went somewhere. There are times when I share my screen, everything goes berserk, and I'm going to try. Hopefully that won't happen. So, no berserk. Okay. So these are our topics for our sessions. First of all, who is the other? And second, why do we separate? And then next week, same time, we're going to go through session 2 of Engaging the Other. We're going to talk about The Hidden Wound, which is a book. We're going to talk about how we actually heal our separations, and then some practical steps, some practical things that you can do to engage the other. And you're going to have homework. And the homework is going to be practicing this stuff and coming back and talking about what happened when you practiced. Okay. So I just told you the stories of the other. The question is, who is your other? And before we do this, I am going to stop sharing, and I'm going to ask you for the document that you filled out for the who is your other chart. I want you to give me some ideas. The first question is going to be, who shows up on your chart in the positive or friendly or interesting category? Let's first go. I'll first ask the question regarding your historical figures, so that because everybody should have a historical figure that you put in that column. So if anybody wants to share, put up your meat hand or put up your digital hand. Greg, we're going to take you first, and then Lisa. So unmute yourself, Greg.
For a historical figure, I chose Thurgood Marshall. He's one of my.
I'm sorry, did you say heroes? Okay. And Lisa?
I put Golda Meir.
Golda Meir. and I'm assuming, again, in the positive category. Susan, unmute
I
yourself.
also had gold in my ear. in that category.
Okay. I guess I'm going to have to start putting gold in my ear in my column now. Okay. Debbie.
I did Michelle Obama.
Michelle Obama. Okay. I've heard of her, yeah. Monica, unmute yourself.
I
No,
put Maya Angelou.
Maya Angelou, okay. Okay, so let's get the opposite category. The historical figures who are unfriendly or you would dislike or you would consider in the enemy category. So who wants to go? Jill.
Hitler.
Say again?
Hitler.
Okay. Yeah, I think there's probably general agreement on that in the world. We know there's some folks and they kind of hang out in Charlottesville that feel otherwise. But yeah, how to make a name unpopular. I mean, how many people name their children Adolf? Okay. How to make a style of mustache unpopular. It's like, how many people, maybe I should cut my mustache to look like that, but it's like, no, nobody wants anything to do with it. So another unfriendly or enemy, David.
Now I can't even think of his name. He's a physicist who was the father of the H-bomb. And opportunity to sit across the table from him.
Are you talking about Teller?
Yes, Edward Teller.
Okay.
Or not Oppenheimer. Okay.
And I just had about an hour and a half sitting across the table and sort of having a halfway conversation with him, and it was just unbelievable. The guy's, he's Dr. Strangelove multiplied by, factor of 3.
Yeah, Dr. Strangelove, but he's not funny. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Anyone else? Another historical, Tim.
Pol Pot.
Say again.
Pol Pot.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's another unfortunately good one. Yeah. Greg.
I actually don't have anybody in my dislike column because I feel like to actually dislike somebody, I have to know them much better than I can know a historical figure or celebrity.
On the one hand, I'm going to agree with you. It could just be these folks have had really bad press. I mean, they just didn't have the right script writers, On the other hand, when you're talking about people like Pol Pot, when you're talking about people like Hitler, when you look at the just the totality of what they've done, it is easy to consider these people other. My own personal connection with a historical figure was when President Václav Havel invited me to participate in Forum 2000. There's 40 people around the table, and one of those people was Henry Kissinger, whom I considered to be a war criminal. And I had to think for actually a week or so, am I going to sit down across from a person that I think is guilty of war crimes? And I did it, and I'm glad I did it. He's not glad I did it, but that's another story. Okay, let's go into.
Can I just say,
Sure.
for example, when I think of our current president, in order to humanize him, I think of him as a 4-year-old boy being indoctrinated with all the crazy stuff that we're all suffering. And I don't hate him. I don't blame him. I have feelings about him, but they're not of otherness.
What's his name that wrote the book, Being Peace? Thich Nhat Hanh. Thich Nhat Hanh has, if you haven't read Being Peace, write that down, Being Peace, and you should get it and you should read it. He is a Vietnamese Buddhist monk. He was nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize by Martin Luther King. And he talks about feeling compassion when people were leaving Vietnam on these rickety boats during the change of regime. There were pirates in the South China Sea that were preying on the boat people. And at one point, he was describing how the pirates came onto this boat, stole everything that these people had. And there was a little girl, 8-year-old girl, and the pirates raped her, killed her, and threw her body in the water for the sharks. And Thich Nhat Hanh said, it's really easy to be compassionate for the little girl who lost her life in such a horrible way. It's more difficult to be compassionate for the pirate. And as Greg just said, what kind of an upbringing would you have to have been subjected to that would allow you to do something like that? And so he wrote a very powerful poem called Call Me By My True Names, where he says during the poem, I am the little girl being stolen from, raped, and murdered and thrown to the sharks. And I am also the pirate who was hurt as a child at a point, to a point that I could do something like that. And if you can be with that energy, it will affect you. Say one more thing about it, and I see there's some other folks that have their microphones open who want to say something about this. From time to time, Commonwealth does movie nights, and one of the movie nights that we did that Greg came to was showing the Adolf Hitler ascendancy movie, The Triumph of the Will. And if you've never seen The Triumph of the Will, go to Netflix and look at it. It's amazing. Everybody who says that Trump is like Hitler, you don't know what Hitler did. You don't know what Hitler was about. Hitler was really smart, and we're very fortunate that Trump is not Hitler. But there's another movie, and I'm putting Greg on notice now, the opposite end of the Hitler trajectory is a movie called Downfall. And I don't know if anybody has seen it. Go to Netflix. It is a very hard movie to watch. It's the last 10 days of Adolf Hitler. And he was clearly in full madness at the time. But the people around him were also mad, which was very, well, watch the movie and then we'll talk about it. Okay, Vina, I see you, well, you had your microphone open. I don't know if you got something you want to say or you want to add to our list of unfriendlies here.
Similar to, it's Greg, right? I don't see your face anymore.
Right.
Similar to Greg, I had a hard time with the unknowns, although Trump did make it in that category just because it's a source of constant annoyance and like strife internally for me. So it's very present in my mind. And so I just wanted to say that I was thinking like, why is that? And I think that to, again, build on what Greg is saying, of the idea of we're all pieces of the divine. We're all pieces. Every single one of us is a piece of the divine. At least that's my belief. Now, I want to say that I have the great luxury of not having my mother killed by someone or my close relative. And I think it's a lot harder to have that belief. It's harder to get to that place for the person who's just, you know, destroyed your life or destroyed your loved one's life. So I just want to have compassion for both of those statements. You know, I was really feeling what you're saying, but then I also realized, wow, I'm really lucky that I can get there so easily.
Yeah, and we as a society are lucky. We're lucky that we are interacting in the ways that we are. We are I'd be willing to bet that none of you have seen a dead body on the streets. Yes? No? You have? Yes? I'm sorry. I guess I should say the streets of America. Yes? Okay, I'm not seeing any hands up. Oh, Marianne, do you want, oh, and David, do you want to share where you saw this? David, you're unmuted. Well, now you're muted, okay.
I was playing golf with a friend and he was driving and the course was weighing the heck out. And we were coming back and it was about 105 degrees. And we got to Highway 26, the Sunset Highway. And I looked over to the left and there was a car parked on the shoulder and they were trying to do CPR on a guy on the gravel.
Mm-hmm.
So I ran, I'm a physician, I'm a retired internal medicine doctor. So I ran over there and I got there and I put my hand on his groin to see if he had a femoral pulse and I felt it and then it disappeared. Just 2 beats and it was gone. So he just died under my hand. And it was a drive-by road rage shooting. I mean, it was just totally irrational. It was hot and the traffic was bumper to bumper on a Sunday afternoon coming back from the coast. But yeah, it was pretty memorable.
Mm-hmm.
And it was.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Marianne, you said you have something to share.
Oh no, I just had seen a body of a young man when I went to work early one day in Anchorage, and he had been killed by some other boys, and I always remember his name and how his face looked. I just will never forget his name, and it was very sad.
Yeah, well, yeah, it in my upbringing and the upbringing of many other people in the third world. I'm considering Camden, New Jersey as the third world. Okay. I saw a lot of bodies, probably starting at 8, and saw people killed in front of me. And it wasn't a particularly big deal, okay? And so our framework for the other is, can be shifted around that. Let me say this. Since we're still on the first line of my outline, I'm going to move on. In terms of families and intimates, I'm going to skip that category. How about others from your social life or your work life, etc.? Not necessarily a name, but a category, like, you know, managers or obnoxious coworkers or neighbors who walk their dogs on your lawn. Yeah, how do you put your others together?
I have neighbors who drive down the street with blasting their stereos.
Mm-hmm. Probably with music you don't like.
Oh yeah.
Okay. So if they blasted music that you liked,
I still wouldn't like it.
Oh, okay, okay. They're blasting Mozart, you know.
Which I like,
Yeah.
but I just think, you know, Keep your music in your car.
Okay. Debbie, I see. Okay, now I see hands. So Debbie, Robin, Monica, and Tim. Try to remember your order.
So mine are
Okay.
people who are selfish and self-centered.
Okay. Robin.
Mine are neighbors who practice conventional agriculture and argue with me endlessly about the benefits of that versus organics.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Monica.
I have to say that your description of this category being people that are hard to connect with helped me answer this column, because I don't really hate anyone and I don't consider most people an enemy. So in this particular category, it's a neighbor, and I live in a lake community, and he shoots the geese that come to our properties from the lake, and he's, you know, periodically out there cursing. He's just an odd character. And we don't have a lot of privacy from this particular neighbor. So I put him in that category.
I have a question about that. Is he shooting the geese for food, or is he just shooting the geese?
He's just shooting the geese. So the next time I catch him doing that, I'm calling the cops, because that's illegal.
Yeah. I had a friend when I was living in North Carolina who's from Vietnam, and we had decided to have a meeting at a particular park, and we were walking around the park with this meeting. And I forget the name of the park. It was the biggest park in Charlotte. And beautiful, beautiful park. And there are these beautiful swans that are in the park. And when we saw the swans, we just paused, because to me, they were so beautiful. And he said, I know that when you're looking at that, you're looking at these beautiful animals. But I want you to know that when I'm looking at that, I'm looking at food. Okay, I'm looking at food that nobody is eating, you know. And so when we stop to admire it, we're admiring very, very different things. And so that's why I wanted to find out whether this guy is just like literally just killing them to watch them drop, or is he eating them or whatever.
Yeah, they're annoying him.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. There's some people, either you will have to be trained to interact with, or you may not be able to reach at all. I have a number of neighbors outside these windows right here who spend their days walking up and down, screaming to themselves. I mean, literally screaming. They are in some other environment and being tortured by that environment. Okay, and so it makes it very difficult to connect with them. Tim, I think you were next, and Dave, I think that I saw your hand up too.
For me, I'm gonna focus on the trigger piece. It's like, because it's like, for these particular people, it's not that like I hate them or don't understand them, or it's like, in fact, there's some affection and understanding, but the things that they do that trigger, that could definitely put me in that you're the other. And I have some neighbors that like cut my grass and bushes for me without asking. So for me, that's triggering, because I grew up like that's my responsibility. If you're doing it, I feel shame and I feel disrespected because you didn't ask me. So that's one. But they're lovely people in most respects, and I care about them. And the other is the other day I was just out on the sidewalk in front of my house, and a car zoomed by. And I believe I had two young men in the car, and one of them threw something at me. I think it was like a full water bottle like thing, just like slam. It just went flying by me, and zoomed under the car or something, and it just like took me out of shock. So that was triggering because it triggered fear and like that, like danger, like and then the sequela of like anger and like what the WTF kind of mind is thinking that that's an okay thing to do, and is it out of some like just expression of rage or some expression of like, let's just see what this is like, anyway.
I would say that it's an expression of powerlessness, and it's an attempt to try to, in some way in your environment, get power. And those power avenues are pretty much closed off for everybody. And so therefore, the way that you manifest that is in these very seriously socially inappropriate ways. More on that in a bit. David, and then we're going to move. Oh, Jill, you got your phone on. David, then June. Then we're going to have to move along to what I was going to do at 7:30, at 6:30.
Okay, you talked twice tonight already about people that are having conversations with themselves that go by, and I think it's important to understand they're having conversation with somebody else. They're having auditory hallucinations. They're not seeing them, but this person they're talking with, if they are really getting pissed off, you have to understand who is this person they're talking to, and whether they say you don't know. And so it sounds like he's getting aggressive toward you. You have to assume that that voice is telling them that you're a bad guy and he should knife you or something.
Yeah.
It's a really big distinction. Otherwise, you have to feel compassion for people that need a dose of whatever they are supposed to be getting every 3 weeks, and they're not getting it because they haven't been able to get to the clinic, or they, whatever. That's the way I see that because of my training, and my father was a psychiatrist and so on.
So I think that, again, these are very important points. One of the things that I do, one of the things I try to do is hold my energy with them as they're having their episode. That I believe that I can help them shift their energy.
Wow.
If I hold my energy. Now, that a lot of times that I'm holding the energy, but I'm not making eye contact. I'm holding the energy, but I'm not within reach of them. Okay. I don't feel that I'm going to go smiling up to somebody and give them a nice big hug while they're in the middle of an episode. But I'm saying this to say that each of us can do this, even from 25 or 30 feet away. Those of you who are on the call about the space of the electromagnetic space of your own heart. If I'm 10 feet away from somebody, they're in my heart field. And by calming and regularizing my breath, I can help them calm down. Okay, Jill, and then we're moving right along.
I was going to say I had one person that was my other for most of this last year. She was a new principal. I teach kindergarten in a bilingual school, and I have been teaching for 30 years. And her belief is that if you've been teaching more than, say, 10 years, you've been too long in the profession. And so I have big other, and when I get into the point of, okay, that's just her, it's not me, it's her belief, don't take it personally, it backs off. But it's just interesting, and I know I'm on my way out because I'm choosing not to stay, but I want the right position to open up for me. And then you keep talking about mentally ill. My mom is right there right now, and I was telling Sharif that if I get a phone call, my mom's in memory care, that I'm going because I'm going to calm her down. And it's just I'm talking on the phone because I can calm her down. Anyway.
Yeah, and I don't use the term mentally ill. There's something wrong. There's something out of balance, and they need to come back into balance. But in our society, we tend to think the whole person is right here. and I'm going to mess with your brain and I can get you to be such and such, etc. When the whole person needs to be treated, and not only the whole person, but their whole past, you know, that for many people, they're acting out of their past.
Yeah.
On that, I'm going to zip my lip and we're going to go back to screen sharing here.
Sherry, can I
And
just
then,
say one thing?
sure.
Really, I just wanted to share. I noticed when I looked at my charts that there's this progression
Mhm.
from people I know really well in the positive column to people
Mhm.
I kind of know, but maybe not that much, neutral. And I don't really have a whole lot of people in the far column, but that would be maybe people that really annoy me that I can't find a way to connect with, right?
Mhm.
So I think there's I just reflecting on the people driving down the street with really loud music, like that's super annoying, right? Especially when, well, for me, it's, it's like the really loud bass, it just like gets me in the gut and it's just kind of annoying, and especially if you want to sleep or whatever. But if you met them in a context and had a conversation, you would probably like them, or you would find a commonality. They maybe be just neutral for the most part, right? And same in a lot of the examples of this person's annoying, except for maybe the guy with the gun, that's scary. He's shooting things. But I found that was interesting to note in my own chart as I looked across.
Yeah, and that is generally the situation that we don't. Okay, so now I am going to get to the Portland State chart here. So because this will, I think, will respond to some of what you just said. And here we go. So when I did this exercise with my Portland State University students, they came up with a lot of categories, but these are some that I thought were most interesting. Okay, wait a minute. Okay, so greedy people, materialistic people, warmongers and torturers. One person said everyone outside of a concept of myself is other. Others defined by a role. So my role in that situation was their professor or their lecturer, and if professors or lecturers are other, then I was other. We are each other to each other, and that takes it to another level, so that I can see someone, as Vina was just saying, someone who is other for me. If I know them, they're just weird and quirky, and I got a lot of weird and quirky people in my life. If I don't know them, then they take on other overtones. Age differences, and that can go in both directions. People that you think of as old, people that you think of as young, you can be othering for you. Whatever purports to do me harm, or I think the better way of saying that is whatever I assume or whatever I believe would do me harm. Passive otherness, people who see bad things yet do nothing about it. Someone outside of my culture, and I think this is, again, if you have had no experiences outside of your culture, any other culture is othering for you. And someone said, other is a moving target. Other is anyone I feel I must defend myself against. And again, there's a trap there, just like in the purports to do me harm. My other, if I may feel I need to defend myself against, you name it, okay? And at some point in time in my life, I think every other possible configuration of human or other being is someone I felt I needed to defend myself against. So it became something that was continuing. So there is a quote coming up, I think, next. And this is from my little booklet, Finding Our Way in the Land of the Blind, where I say, who is the other? Simply, the other is the person or group with whom you find it hardest to practice inclusivity, the group from whom you feel the most separation. The other may be a person of a different ethnicity, class, religion, and or ideology. The other may be a parent or a spouse. All of us have someone who, for us, is the other. All of us experience degrees of separation from other people. The challenge of the 21st century is to not act on the feelings of separation. Our challenge is to act like we are all brothers and sisters, not strangers and enemies. So that gives us a backdrop. It gives us a way of looking at, or a way of seeing our own relationship to other. So let me see, before I ask for a question, if there are any questions, I need to do one thing here. Okay. So are there any questions, comments, thoughts about where we are right now? See hands, digital or meet. Okay. We're, Angela. I'm sorry, I didn't see the digital hand.
Sorry, that's okay. I did it at the same time. I'm just wondering how much, from your experience, how comfortable or uncomfortable we are plays into this idea of other. Because when I don't know about something, I can otherize it, but once I know it and I become familiar, but from your perspective in relationship to this topic, is that relevant, or how does it connect?
Why don't you say some more about that? What I think I'm hearing is, if I am familiar with something, or if I'm familiar with someone, there may be less othering present. That may or may not be the case. And so say some more, and let me give you a couple of examples from my point of view.
Yeah, and that's expanding on it. So for example, one of my others, it's more about ideas. Our ideas are very different, and it's, you know, when I otherize, I'm annoyed, I don't want to take the time. But when I take the time to communicate and I actually hear where that person's coming from, they're no longer the other. So it's similar with like people I don't know at first, they might be the other. But like I said, I think that's like a subcategory, or maybe not even related to what you're actually talking about.
Well, no, I think it is related. Let me give you an example, and then we're going to get to another set of questions here. When I'm doing inclusivity work, I'm generally am invited to do that work in organizations where they are experiencing massive disconnects in terms of inclusivity. So when I was working with Tim at the Multnomah County Health Department, that was not a place where there were massive dislocations. That was close to holding hands and singing Kumbaya compared to some of the groups I work with. And the one group I am thinking about in particular I was brought in because an entire work unit was hazing the one Mexican worker that was in the work unit, calling him every possible negative name for an Hispanic person that you could. Now, he files a suit. They settle it as quickly as they could, but he wound up getting a lot of money. And they hired me to come in to talk to the 12 guys that were the ringleaders of this. And they were completely unrepentant. We did nothing wrong. We didn't want the city to settle. We wanted to go to court and clear our good names. And because I dealt with this kind of person for 30 years, I know exactly, I had no fear. I was able to help them through the situation because I could relate to them as human beings, etc. Does that mean they stop being other to me? Well, no. They're still other. I am just reacting to them. This is just like I said in the quote. I am acting as though they are my brothers, and in this case, brothers and sisters. I can do that with people that I know, and I can also do that with people I don't know. I can even do that with people I've just heard of. Okay, and that's our work in these sessions. We're going to get to the point where you can, and it's not pretending, it's really seeing past all the surface stuff that you're looking at, all of the oppositional surface stuff, looking past that into the core essence of who they are. Most of us in this society don't want to see that. We don't want to do that. We don't want to go there. And so Greg, why don't I see you've got a blue hand up there.
Yeah, the thing that I wanted to comment on is, because I'm African American in these times, I actually have to spend some time thinking about what happens if I meet a drunken mob of racists. You know, I have smart guy privilege. I've had lots of people try to act in racist ways towards me, and as long as I can reason with them, they find themselves confronted with somebody who won't hate them back, won't be angry. But a mob isn't like that. You can't reason with a mob. So it hasn't been tested, but I imagine that my belief that we are all brothers and sisters would be strong enough so that I would just kind of I didn't want to just say die peacefully, but
yeah. Well, yeah, and I think that what you're doing is we're looking at the furthest end of this. I mean, like, this is the most extreme condition. For those of you who don't know me, I am someone who believes in all of the wisdom traditions. I don't have anything that I'm pushing on anybody. And I speak from all of them. The only one I can't speak from reasonably is Zoroastrianism, but everything else I'm grounded in all the books, okay? I'm not grounded in the Book of Mormon. I've only read half of it. See me in 5 years, okay? I believe this is what Jesus's message was in terms of allowing himself to be crucified. I think that he was both smart enough, adept enough, transcendentally oriented enough to know that something was up and he probably shouldn't go to Jerusalem. And I think he went because he was proving the core of his own belief to those who had the highest level of oppositional energy to him. Would I be able to do that? I don't know. I would like to know that I am able to do that before I'm confronted with it, and I haven't been confronted with it in that way. When I have been confronted by people aiming machine guns at me in various points of the world, not this country, but actually, well, when I was young in this country, I believe I've acted in a way that was not othering to them and was not other. However, I'm not certain. Well, we'll at some point in time, we all will get tested. If I live through the experience, I'll let you know how it turned out. Okay. So let me ask you a different question here and do a different screen share. So, who do you think of as other? We just did that with your chart. And I want you to save the chart because even as we're going through other elements of our series, you may want to come back and rethink people in various positions. My question for you now is, who thinks of you as other? When someone looks at you, who do you think is looking at you as other? Now, Greg just gave you one level of other that I experience. He calls it smart guy othering. I am, when I'm doing work with various groups, and so these can be white, male, conservative, red hat wearing groups that or blue uniform groups that I work with. Or it could be young African-American, shut down, shut off, I don't want to hear anything you got to say. There is an other that comes about that's very subtle, that comes about through education, through your schooling. Before I went to college, my vocabulary sounded an awful lot like Samuel L. Jackson in an R-rated movie. He can clean it up if he needs to. I couldn't at the time. I've learned how to speak standard English. There are people who make the assumption that that's where I've always been and that that's othering for them. In which case, sometimes I have to break out my Camden vocabulary just to let them know that I'm bilingual. So for you, though, who is the other? Who have you had experience of someone experiencing you as other? Hands up. Dinah, okay. I'm not hearing you.
Oh, okay. Well,
okay.
Until recently, over the last few weeks, so it's weird how I'm thinking I'm of one group, my spiritual community, and then with all of the happenings lately, if I post something now, I've become the other for some people.
Okay. Let's be as specific as we can. Who is other for you? Okay. Are you talking about African American others? Are you talking about white others? Are you talking about non-spiritual or spiritual? Or how do you see that?
I'm trying to think of. I thought the question was who am I the other for? Yeah, right. I already did the other way around. Who's my other? Mm-hmm. Right. So the person is, I have become their other as far as posting about justice, racial justice.
Okay.
So I say have become, because I'm thinking we're in the same spiritual community. Mm-hmm. And based on the postings and the conversation that came back, because of how I responded, it just seemed like now I have become the other because of making a stand for racial justice. It just seemed like this person was like a little put off by my comments.
One of the things that I've found, and and I think a number of you know, that I've been working, well, I work with all spiritual, religious, consciousness communities. And one of the things I've found is there can be a very brittleness in what gets called new thought. That we have the same slogans, and as long as we're going to just mouth these slogans, we're all fine, okay? And as soon as you go a little bit beyond the slogan, okay, to ask, like, we are one, we all love each other. And when I ask the question, okay, what does that mean? What does it mean? How do you exemplify that when you're not sitting in this building at this time? Things can get very weird. Okay. Anyone else want to, Tim, and then Joe.
Mine was, so a big part of my work is I work with a county in the program that serves African-American mothers and their children and families. And I work with that team. That team is primarily African-American. There's one staff member, other staff person who's white. I just remember like one of the staff, like I was in a conversation with her, like a little triad, and she was like, oh, white people do this and white people know about this.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, I'm white. I have no clue what you're talking about. Like I don't know that. I've never done that. So
You know I can hear you, right? No.
Right, yeah, right.
yeah, exactly. I was like, I'm right here.
Yeah, right. Yeah, okay. No, I've seen that a lot. Go ahead, and Jill. I can keep telling stories, and we'll just be here all night long. So go ahead.
I teach in a school where everybody's becoming bilingual and biliterate, and I teach in Spanish all day, and I do not look like a Spanish speaker. And so I am definitely the other, and I sometimes feel like the other because my peers have different color skin, but I've been doing this for a very long time, and at the very beginning there were not Hispanic or Latina teachers that were doing this. And I will even go to a workshop that will be in Spanish, and somebody will turn around and just start to translate to me. And I'm like,
oh yeah, right.
I would be here.
I got this. Okay, right.
And it's just amazing. And then also my sister treats me as an other because she's in a whole nother income bracket, and anybody of intelligence would be kind of like in her income bracket.
Right.
And then
so you must be stupid because you're poor. Yes.
And then and I mean, it's all a subjective thing, whether you're poor or rich or whatever. But also I'm kind of the other because a lot of people don't look past my weight and my size.
Yep. Oh, goodness. I may have the time to come back to that. I write a set. One of the ways I teach folks to take notes is what the person is saying, and then over here what you want to say, and that way I don't have to interrupt you saying, "Oh yeah, I want to tell you something," So, Vina.
Well, I mean, I felt like an other more than not in pretty much my entire life. And I kind of wonder if that's just what everyone feels. Or maybe it's
no, you're the only one. You are the only one. In fact, we're going to have to exclude you from this conversation if you're saying that. Yeah.
I'm a child of immigrants. So I was raised in a very white neighborhood. So I was definitely felt like the other, and people would misidentify me, which made me feel even more other. They would just, then when I went to the country of my origin, or my parents' origin, they felt like I was an other there. People would ask me, "Where are you from?" Because I didn't look like, I didn't walk like an Indian woman should walk. I looked around, it wasn't in there. So they perceived me as the other. That's my dad's side. Went to my mom's side in England. Well, I'm not white, so they perceived me as the other. So it was kind of like this lifelong feeling of being an other. And that's, even with my husband, who I love and I'm not planning to get divorced from, he sees me as an other. He does. I see him as an other. We don't we've only been married for 15 years, but there are still things that
you'll work it out, okay?
I hesitate to share that, but I feel like that's an important thing because, I love him. I'm not planning to get divorced, but there are things he does that annoy me so much. Oh, how could you do that? How could you say that? How I don't relate, right? So that's just a side note, but I think the feeling of being an other kind of just all the time has guided me as a person, my growth. One, to not care about not feeling like being an other. You just have to accept it. It's fine. What's important is being who you are, right? That was ingrained in me early on in high school, where I just realized I was never going to fit in. So let's stop trying. And then the other thing is to kind of like, at the same time, at a certain point in my life, just stop trying to look different, stop trying to be different. Just try to just keep it all just tamped down. So I just can kind of pass through life. Maybe people don't, I imagine maybe they don't really think they don't know me. They think I'm something else, but yet at least I'm not standing out. And so I'm not sure, you know, the first one's maybe more of a positive way to react, but that's it.
We have to do something, okay? This conversation is way too good, and I want to get through at least one other section. Can we buy 10 minutes past the hour? Are we all able to hang in there for 10 minutes past the hour? Lisa, I know you, you're probably propped up right now, but yeah, can we do that? I don't want to, I think the next section will tie a lot of this stuff in, and I want to get these other voices in here too. Okay, so we're going to go 10 minutes past the hour, and I'll get this other section in. So Tim first, and I think Robin, I think I saw your hand also.
I just wondered if we ever can talk about feeling like so much like the other in the group that we look most like. For me, like with the group, that if I'm in a homogenous group, if the group I'm most uncomfortable is older white men. Like this is the group that I'm like, wow, I feel like really other from. So I mean, if that's part of like, there's that kind of like the inside outside, like, you know, the phenotype, how you look and how you feel, and all that.
The people that I feel the most other with are people that I share DNA with, okay? It's not just that they look like me, it's that they are me, you know? And I haven't been to a family reunion. I send my daughters to the family reunion, but I don't go because I look at the family reunion pictures. I'm being very serious here. I'm gonna have to go back and erase this part of the tape. But I look at the family reunion pictures and I look at them and I say, who are these people? Why would I be in a space with these people? You know, why am I going to go across the country, and what are they doing, and why are they doing this? You know, the connection that you have with a person has nothing to do with how comfortable you are with their surface presentation. Okay. I want to say something before, Robin, before you speak. Something that Vina said that I really have been thinking about a lot lately, and it's about the concept of being what I'm calling a global citizen. The place where I feel comfortable is the place where all of those surfaces don't make any sense, where you've got a mixture of languages and colors and ideologies and everything else, so that all of us are kind of starting from a maybe calling it new eyes or a new way of looking at things. And so my especially in light of the George Floyd situation, I can remember the feeling of putting a brick through a plate glass window during an insurrection. It's a great feeling. They should make plate glass windows just so you can put bricks through, okay? And I recognize the feelings of helplessness, despair, powerlessness, anger, etc., that drove me to throw the brick. I can be compassionate with that level of Sharif, which means therefore I'm compassionate with the people who are like right outside my window, but I also don't identify with that anymore. And so my identity, this identity has just become really, really malleable, you know, and I think that as we move through our upheavals now, that we are the ones that are going to rise to the top because we're not the ones held back by a way of looking at the world, if that makes any sense. Okay, Robin, and then I'm going to go to my back to my slides here.
Yeah, I just wanted to respond to Vina also, because I come from a lifetime of being a white privileged person in America, which is a very white supremacist culture. And so I've not ever felt like the other, really. And it's taken me years of going back and forth to South Africa and living in the colored community there to get it that I was being colorblind and that everybody else there was seeing me as the other because they were seeing me as a white person. And I wasn't getting that in my head that I was a white person. Does that make sense? You know, it's like such a deep embeddedness in white privilege that I haven't really truly been able to get it, how that whole system is so totally screwed up and so totally off that I don't want to live in that anymore. I don't want to be that. I don't want to. And so I feel like I'm an infant, and I'm a really aware person and I'm really a conscious person, but I'm like an infant at getting it at what I've been doing in terms of race. I don't know. It's hard to express, but that's what
this is almost like you read my notes. This is a perfect setup for my next section here. Let me say as I'm getting set up for the next section, that I understand everything that you're saying, and it's not about being white. It's that's there when all this stuff that you were talking about, this backpack of privileges, is there when I am in Africa, when it's there in me when I am in Africa. It's there in me when I am in India. It's there in me when I'm around people darker than me. Mm-hmm. It's there when I am in Sri Lanka, and the only difference between me and them is that I'm a foot taller. Okay, and that's enough to trigger others. Some of you have heard about my experiment when I was with Oregon Governor's School. This is 60, 70 young people from around the state, all high school students. And the sun is coming out into my eyes, so I'm gonna have to do this. Okay, ta-da. I was core faculty, so they had me every day for 6 weeks. And when they came into class, I said one thing to them. All of the students that are wearing white underwear, stand on this side of the room. And then all of the students that are wearing underwear of color, stand on the other side of the room. How long did it take for them to start fighting?
1 second.
It was more like 20.
Yeah.
20 seconds. Even as they're standing up moving, the cat calling started, oh, you're wearing such and such started. How long do you think that went on?
Till you stopped it.
Till I stopped it 3 days later. And I stopped it because I thought it was about to become violent. They were yelling at each other, cursing at each other. You can't sit at my table because you were wearing colored underwear. People coming to me crying. I've got a roommate that wants me to move out because I was wearing white underwear. Cliques were forming and deforming around underwear. The students that were saying, that the handful of students, they're saying, this is ridiculous. We're allowing ourselves to be manipulated. Both sides would come, the students with white underwear and students with underwear of color would come down on them because they're obviously the enemy. And this is around underwear. We can separate around anything and tell ourselves that this is crucially important. The way that it stopped was somebody in a superior position, which is me, said, if anybody says or indicates anything around underwear again, I will have you expelled. That chilled it out immediately, okay? It took another half a day for them to kind of get over it, etc. But America could act like that to the entire world. We could say to the world, we're all going to get together and this is going to be enforced. Or what we wind up doing is going in and taking one side or the other and making everything worse. It's our choice. Let me get back to this screen share here. I want to look into how otherness is actually created. And these are some of the background notions around what creates otherness. When I look at my own behavior, my behavior is innocent, it's normal, it's good, it's pleasant, I'm a nice guy, I want people to like me, I'm a likable person. When I look at your behavior, if I'm looking at the other, your behavior is abnormal, is deviant, is evil. Why do you do things like that? This is not the way things should be done. You're too tall, you're too short, you're too white, you're not white enough, you're too black, you're not black enough. We've heard it all. When I look at my behavior, I always have the best of intentions, and I don't understand it when other people will look at me and say, why did he do that? Of course I did it because for everybody's good. When I look at your behavior, I'm looking at the worst purposes. The reason that you do these things is because you're abnormal and deviant and evil. And that's the reason why you offered to hold the door for me, because you think I'm too weak to hold the door for myself. When I look back at my behavior, if my behavior has hurt someone, that behavior was either accidental, or it wasn't in my control, or somebody else's fault or somebody else's responsibility. When I look at your behavior, if your behavior is hurtful, it was purposeful. You meant to step on my foot. You meant to drive your car into my car, okay? Your behavior is always under your control, so if you stepped on my foot, you did it on purpose. And if something breaks, it has to be your fault. It has to be your responsibility. So, any examples of this or anything you want to add to the column of either my behavior or your behavior in terms of how otherness is created? Question, comment?
I would just, sorry, I would just add that you might consider that somebody didn't care. You didn't care.
Right. Right. And it's interesting, but I think that that is playing out right now with regard to the officer who killed Mr. Floyd. When you look at his face, with him, with his neck, his knee on this person's neck, when you look at his face with his hands in his pockets, what was going through his mind was not, I get to kill a black man today. Ha, 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 ha. You know, this guy is not Darth Vader, okay? He's sitting there counting the change in his pockets to see whether he's going to have a cheeseburger or a slice of pizza for lunch. Where he's thinking about what kind of report does he need to get filled out and who's going to drive this guy to the station house and fill out the report. This, I think, is a really big point because there are probably millions, tens of millions of people in this country who don't see the police that way. They see them as every day that they're loading their gun up, saying, maybe I get to kill a black person today, ha, 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 ha. And that's not what happens. And that keeps us away from changing the behavior because that's not what happens. What's happening is something, and this is another book I'm recommending, which is Hannah Arendt's book, Eichmann in Jerusalem. And the subtitle of the book is A Report on the Banality of Evil. It's evil as an everyday construct. It's just, it's like evil, like changing your tires, you know, and we need to be conscious that that evil is alive and well and is probably prevalent in our society, and it's the hardest thing to get at because we don't understand it. Jill, I see your hand up, and we're going to take a couple more hands, and then Bill, I see yours, and then we're going to have to let Zoom go for at least a bit. So Jill, you're yeah.
I sometimes create otherness by looking at that person and saying, oh, that person is just ignorant. They haven't looked at whatever the issue is yet.
Yes. Now that's I want us to, that's a very big point. Anybody who is smart agrees with me. Anybody who doesn't agree with me is just ignorant, and we should tolerate them as their ignorance as they progress and grow to the point and evolve to the point where they can start thinking like me. Okay, and it is really hard for me to let that one go. For me to listen and say, this person is thinking very different from me and their point has to be valid, and I've got to sit with this. I've got to sit with their point until I can evolve to understanding them. I can evolve to a level where we're mutually understanding each other. Me not saying I'm normal and everybody who thinks other than me is deviant or missing the boat in some way. David.
Me? Oh, yeah. I've been thinking for several minutes about a situation. I do very well one-on-one because my whole career, 40 years, was one-on-one. And they were the person I was really listening carefully to and so on, and that helps a lot. Today, I was walking my dog. We got to 21st, which is a pretty main thoroughfare, and we went across Clackamas, where there's a big, obvious pedestrian. They've even got little poles up in the middle of the street. This guy came flying through, almost hit both of us, and I just lost it. You know, I was angry. It was just a sudden thing. I thought for the next 3 blocks about what I should have done and what I should have said. And, you know, he gave me the finger. I mean, it was like awful. And it was totally sudden and unexpected. And I have trouble with that. And I don't have any trouble in a one-on-one or even one-on-three defusing a situation or finding common ground very quickly, talking with them about something, you know, and it was just, it happened today. It happened like 5 hours ago, and it still makes me feel this adrenaline flowing.
Yep. It sits in your stomach for a long time. I should have done this. I should have said that.
And I realize
in some cases, it can sit in your stomach for 10 to 15 years. Okay. It can get re-triggered. When I was 16 years old, I took a very serious police beating. 4 officers with batons beat me for several minutes. I know because I saw the video. After the first 2 hits, I was gone. They then grabbed me by my feet and dragged me down the stairs of Camden City Hall, the marble stairs, at my head hitting each step on the way down. Threw me back in the back of a police wagon, and I was not scheduled to make it there alive. Spent the next 3 days paralyzed from my neck down, which, if you've never been paralyzed before, it's a really scary feeling. And then when the feeling came back, it was a scarier feeling, like I have pain all over my body. And it took about 15 years for me to understand what happened, for me to forgive the 4 officers involved. The entire time I'm carrying that around. So I saw a quote the other day that said, unforgiveness is like you taking poison expecting somebody else to die from it. And I was carrying that poison around. When we were talking, when Greg was talking about the relationship to the other and being in a loving position regarding the other, I make an assumption that that is a state where I can see the other coming and think about it. Like, okay, this is the place where I could really be in trouble now. Let's call on the reserves of compassion. Let's call on the reserves of loving kindness. Let's actually see how you practice this. When it comes at you all of a sudden like that, somebody screeching their brakes or whatever, I don't know if I've got enough loving kindness built up to counteract Camden. If I'm walking down the street not paying attention and somebody grabbed me out of an alley, I would feel really sorry for them, okay? I actually would come visit them in the hospital that I would put them in. And I'd apologize, because it's like, if you had just given me even half a block, I would be able to react a better way than this. And I don't know, maybe I've gotten cooled out enough for that to happen. Okay, folks, obviously, we could go on this topic for another 4 or 5 hours, except for Lisa, she's holding her head. I really appreciate you hanging in there with us. And I look forward to our time next week for us to continue this conversation. This has been really, really powerful stuff. Again, I'll try to have the recording up as soon as possible, which will probably be 24 hours or so from now.
Can you share slides, Sharif?
brain picking. Yes, the next thing I was about to say is I will share the slides with you. I will even try, if they're self-explanatory, I'll try to share the slides that I did not cover from this section, from this session. I'll get them on a Google Doc. If y'all want to talk to each other, that would be cool. I can create a Google Doc just for you to put in notes and thoughts and things like that. And that way, see, as soon as I hang up, the chat box disappears. I can get the chat box to you, but it's not the same. And so we can create a chat box in the Google Doc if you want to do that. Who wants to do that? Yes? Maybe? Okay, there'll be 3 of us chatting, okay. But Vina, you had—
Can you, just can you clarify, we're not meeting next week, but the week after, right? This isn't every other week.
No, this is, this week, next week we will be meeting. Next week,
yes.
And then we're waiting 3 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so 2 sessions for engaging the other. Right, yeah, look at your schedule. I'll send it out again, send out schedule. The idea is the last couple of Tuesdays of every month, we're going to be doing this. And to give you plenty of time for you to practice this before we go to the next section. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Everyone should unmute so we can say goodbye. And I look forward to our continued conversation around this, I think, very important and very stimulating concept. So thank you.
Thank
bye.
you for sharing so openly.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Bye,
Thank you.
everyone.
Night. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Okay.
Have a good week.
So I will see you. Bye.
Bye.